I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we make our triumphant return with my new computer and media playing software.
Let's do this. Back in business.
Coming to you live from the depths of my brand new computer that finally freaking works.
Haha.
I'm really pleased with this thing. I don't think I can really describe it in any terms other than stupidly fast.
Yeah, I mean, I had that Core 2 Duo at work that's still stupidly faster than any computer I've ever used, and this computer is even faster.
Ran into a few problems getting it going. I'm not going to talk about those in any great detail. Eventually, I'll probably do a show about the ordeal of the new computer and the things that are ticking us off about the computer industry right now.
Yep.
But suffice to say, the last problem that we had to resolve was that a lot of podcasters out there use a lot of different programs to make their little podcasts. And I'm of the opinion that most of those programs suck.
Well, they suck for podcasting.
Oh, yeah, they're great. If you want to make techno, you want to mix or master music, you want to make an audio drama, you want to make a music video, anything like that, they're great.
Yeah.
If you want to record one or two channels of talking and then process
At
them...
length.
Yes, and then process them directly and edit them directly.
And filter them and cut them up into, remove coughs and things like that.
Now, in that case, those programs are still okay.
They do those things.
But if you also want to do it often and in a timely fashion,
They're not good at that.
there's really only one program that's worth a dick, and that's Resound.
Well, or Cool Edit.
Or the old Cool Edit. But,
Or I guess Audition, because it is Cool Edit.
yeah, but
And
actually...
maybe that Sony thing we've never used.
Actually, I when I first installed Windows, I got a bunch of Whereses just to look at all those proprietary, expensive audio things.
Mm-hmm.
And the new versions of Audition are kind of, I don't like them.
Nah. Yeah.
Audition 1.5 I liked a lot better, but it had less functionality than Cool Edit. They took some stuff out.
Ugh.
Granted, they took out some things that weren't so useful too, so it wasn't just...
It wasn't all bad.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that Cool Edit was like the end-all, be-all, but Cool Edit was a really good program.
The thing with Resound is like, okay, it's like the only program that does what we need, but it's an old and busted program. It just barely works. But it works enough that it beats everything else.
Yep, I mean, it's kind of cluttered, and it definitely looks old.
It looks like a piece of shit.
But I think because the person who makes it, it's maintained, as far as I can tell, by this one dude
Yeah, he updated it in January.
who's really into audio. So this guy makes this kind of for fun. And there's a lot of algorithms and filters and things that are in here just because he's playing around with audio. And a lot of his experiments have ended up being very useful to me.
I think it just needs to be rewritten, which I might do one day.
Yeah, I like to talk to this guy, actually. I should try to bother him.
You should try to contact him, get him on the show.
I'd love to get him on the show. I'd be like, I'm probably the only dude using your program. Now, I know other people are, but I don't think anyone is podcasting.
It's like no one's respecting the program. It's like because I don't know. Because remember we complained so much in that GarageBand episode. We got the Mac. How GarageBand sucked. Well, apparently I'm checking out these other programs and that are similar in their functionality that a lot of people are using, like Joe Kosher and Audacity and all such. They're all the same as GarageBand. It's not GarageBand. Maybe it is GarageBand's fault because maybe they're copying GarageBand. But how do people consider that to be a good way?
I mean, it is a good way if you're making one thing or you're making music. But if you're recording, like say you did a show every night, or you did something constantly over and over and over again, those interfaces at their fundamental level are not as efficient as Resound and Cool Edit. In fact, Resound's even beaten Cool Edit in a lot of ways because, it's had, I don't know, another 8 years of development.
And it's free.
Yeah, free helps a lot.
Free's good.
I don't know. I think now that I have the new computer, I'm probably going to make videos of me editing the show in Resound compared to me editing the show in GarageBand and Audacity and all these other programs.
Yeah, get the XVidCap going.
Yeah, I want to make a comparison and put it on YouTube and see if there's something I'm missing, or maybe everyone else in the world is the rest of the world. I was going to make a Napoleonic War analogy, but never mind.
I think the rest of the world just sucks at doing podcast editing and such.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, the computer's badass. I love it. That's all I can say.
It took goddamn long enough.
It took me a while to figure. I actually think there's the last thing.
Deet, deet, deet. Gotta take the side panel off.
The only thing that I had trouble with, really, like the biggest thing, was that, I mean, when I name a computer, it's always a big deal because I don't buy new computers often.
Yep.
And I didn't actually think about what I was going to name it. When I built the first computer, I decided what to name it like 6 months before I bought it. This one, I'm sitting at the Windows install prompt, and it's, what do you want to call your computer? And I go, oh, crap.
Yeah, and basically we sort of fell into, because you have to have a theme for naming. Like, this computer lab is going to be all Thundercats, or this computer lab is going to be all Douglas Adams, or this computer lab is going to be all Star Wars, right?
Yep.
Well, with our house, we sort of didn't pick a theme, and we just called our computers by our screen names, and that was it.
Well, we'll go in order. My computer was Shazar, and Scott's was Apresh.
Yep.
And our server was Server.
Yep.
And then we got the media PC.
Yeah, we got the media PC. What do we call that?
We called that Div as well.
Oh, yeah, we called it Div, as in the little DVD player in Penny Arcade. So that was an accurate name. That is why we chose that name, because it was accurate to the function.
Yep. Also, we like Penny Arcade, so.
Yep. And since the Mac Mini is in the living room now, we call that Div.
Yep. And then we got another computer that's little and boxy and looks like a character from Ghost in the Shell. And we had just been watching Ghost in the Shell, so we called it Jameson.
Yep. Just like CEO Jameson.
Yep, who's my second favorite character in Ghost in the Shell.
Yep. And then I got a laptop recently, so I called it Robita, and I said I'm gonna start a Tezuka theme.
Yep, and now
I was gonna name some other computers like Danuba and Hallelujah and all that stuff.
Yep. But then, now that kind of breaks because we have Div and we have all these other things.
And we realized that the theme of our computers is machines and robots from
Media.
Anime and manga and comics and whatever, video games.
So I thought about what I wanted to name this one, and I put a lot of thought into it because I didn't want to break from this theme because I like this theme
Yeah,
quite
it's
a bit.
got to be some sort of robot or machine from something geeky, if it's a video game, anime, whatever.
And then I realized, Scott mentioned, he was saying a bunch of things.
I was just going through every freaking computer and robot from anime, manga, and comics and video games I could think of.
And the one that stuck, the one that I think was perfect, is a character from an anime that a lot of people out there haven't seen. And just so happens that that character was a normal guy who ended up transferring his intelligence or his soul into a ship.
Yep.
And it works even better because he has a little sidekick that I can now name my iPod that.
Oh.
Yes.
That's clever.
However, I had to look up what that sidekick's name was, and it wasn't as cool as I thought it was.
No, it's not.
No.
No.
Because I didn't know what its name was until I looked it up, and I'm kind of...
I used to know the name, and then I forgot it. But if you say it, I'll remember it again.
Yeah. I'm going to save that for Anime Day because no one today cares.
No.
Suffice to say, it is a character from an anime. If anyone out there can guess based on the nothing I've given you...
I'm pretty sure someone's going to know it right away.
I hope so. Because we gave him pretty much
Gerald
nothing.
knows it.
Of course, Gerald knows it. Of course, Gerald's probably thinking, no, it can't be that obvious.
No,
He'll name
it
something
is that obvious.
Yeah, maybe.
If you either know it or you don't. It's either going to be, oh, that's what it is. There's no one else who transferred their mind into a ship.
Well, there are, but it couldn't be that because, whatever.
There's one that's above all others.
Anyway, that's my news because nothing else in the world really happened as far as tech is concerned in my book because I haven't been on the internet. I spent the last 4 days on this computer working on it and not reading FARC.
Yep. Well, there are bigger tech newses than my tech news, but this is the one that I can talk the most about, even though I've talked about it on the show before. Basically, there are some lobbyists out there in Washington. I'm not sure if they're in Washington, D.C. or Washington State.
There's lobbyists?
Yes.
In D.C.?
I guess. But they're good lobbyists, for us anyway, because what they want to do is they're trying to push laws in many states that will mandate the use of open document format and other similar formats for government stuff. What this means is, let's say you are, I don't know, the town clerk, and you have the, I don't know, the application for zoning change, and it's a Microsoft document file. That means if somebody wants to access their government and their democratic government and apply for a zoning change, they need Microsoft Office.
A proprietary, for-profit, paid-for program that you have to go out and get and pay money for.
That's basically the same as saying if you want to drive on the road that your tax money paid for, you have to drive a Ford, because no other car will go on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we really need to explain to all of you why this is a big deal.
So the people who are pushing open document format are saying, hey, you need to make sure all government digital documents are in a format that anyone can use freely without having to buy shit. And also, the advantage of having it be in an open format is, it's probably not going to happen, but on paper, Microsoft could like hold the government by the balls, or, in the future, if Microsoft doesn't, make certain software, then government documents will be lost and unable to be accessed.
There's also a much more simple motivation here. Once the government is using Microsoft Office stuff, they're tied to that. So whenever a new version of Microsoft Office comes out, once anyone upgrades, everyone has to upgrade. Because you all know that Microsoft Office very much likes to be incompatible with older versions of Microsoft Office.
Yep, so now the government has to keep spending money on Microsoft Office and give money to Microsoft forever and blah, 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 blah. So there's lobbyists that are on our side, and they're pushing to get ODF laws mandating open document format in many states. Meanwhile, Microsoft and IBM have some lobbyists pushing from the other side. And so far, we've lost in 6 states.
Well, I think it doesn't help that we don't have as much money as them.
Well, we got something. We're actually lobbying, which is good. We got a bill written. That's a step. We got somewhere.
Yeah, but a lot of bills get written and a lot of bills appear out there. It doesn't mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's one line from this little Slashdot blurb that I think is pretty funny. It says, there was heavy lobbying being done in private on both sides, with one problem being the jargon-laden disinformation that committee members felt they were being fed by lobbyists for both IBM and Microsoft. Although lobbyists would tell the committee one thing in private, they got cold feet when asked to verify that information publicly under oath.
Huh.
In other words, these IBM and Microsoft guys are basically lying and bullshitting to the congressmen. The congressmen are smart enough to see through it, but they're still voting no.
There's the problem. They're smart enough to see through that, but they still don't understand the underlying issue. I
know. I think that's the problem.
I doubt that any congressman involved actually has any idea of what the issue really is.
No, I think there was one guy I remember watching it was like a C-SPAN video from like a U.S. congressional committee meeting about like digital radio and HD radio stuff and the DRM and all that jazz. And of course, the Ted Stevens was there and whatever. But there was one congressman on the side, and he was just sitting on the side somewhere, and no one else was saying anything except him, Ted Stevens, and the people before the committee talking about radio. And this guy kept chiming in, and he knew what was up. And he was some congressman in the U.S. government. I don't know who he is, but
I think the operative question is, how old is he?
He wasn't too old. He was 40-something, maybe 30-something, 40-something. Relatively young.
Yeah, relatively.
Not gray hair. Yeah, but so if there's one in the federal government, there's got to be at least one in each state, I guess.
See, the reason I don't
one is not enough, though.
I mean, on one hand, I this always bothers me. And when I was younger, I was always more and more outraged about this sort of thing than I am now. And if I look back through history, it seems like every bad thing our government in the United States does, every time there's a problem with the government not understanding something or not dealing with something properly, the problem, especially when it comes to social issues, though I think technology is also right up there, regardless of whatever happens or what lobbying is done or whatever laws, anything, the problem gets resolved as a direct correlation with old congressmen dying and new congressmen coming in and the generations changing hands. It seems like every generation that gets into Congress fixes the problems that they cared about the previous generation when they were kids and Congress was bothering them. They don't care about the new kids' issues.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be it was a big problem, pretty much always, but I think it's a bigger problem now because things change so freaking fast, and the government is just as slow as it was in 1802.
Yeah. See, a long time ago, in some ways, I think it was a benefit because it did keep... The one nice thing about our government is that it's slow enough to keep bad things from happening in a hurry.
Yep.
It keeps good things from happening in a hurry, but as the world learned from Rome and the Byzantine Empire, the more good things can happen in a hurry, the more bad things can happen in a hurry.
That is good. That is correct. However, now, bad things that are, of course, bad things that aren't a result of laws, but a result of the nature of the world are happening a lot faster than we can ever stop them. So while we are not making bad things happen by making bad laws, and we're not making good things happen very quickly by making good laws, and it's just going at the steady pace, bad things are happening, and we're just on their own, and not too many good things are happening on their own, relative.
Well, plus, look how fast technology is advancing. Think about how different the world is and the internet is technologically from 2 years ago, even. 2 years ago, the internet was a different place.
There was no YouTube.
In fact, think of this. The internet has changed more in the last 2 years than it did in like the 8 years before that and the 16 years before that.
Yep. And the old fogies in Congress can't keep up, and eventually it's gonna fuck us all.
And it's not even really a question of the old fogies. It's a question of society is getting to the point where things change so rapidly that you fall out of the loop like that in an instant.
I really think there's gonna be a point, maybe later in our lives, where there are going to be people who can't keep up and people who can't. And the people who can't are going to start to look a lot like cavemen to the people who can. And we're really going to, it's sort of going to be like Gundam with like new types and not new types or, what do they call it in Gundam?
Well, I guess normals, humans.
Yeah, humans and...
You didn't know the word for human.
No, the other word. The one that you don't call it new type in Gundam Seed. They call it...
coordinator.
Yeah. I think it's really going to be like that. Where,
See,
there are people that are just below others because they're in the society because they just can't interact with it because they don't know how.
Well, I think it's going to be exactly the same as it is with literacy, at least in the Western world, where currently being illiterate is a crippling handicap.
Yeah, and worse than not having any legs.
And being technologically incompetent or technologically out of the loop, while bad and causes a lot of problems, does not remove you from society the way illiteracy does.
But it will.
Yet, I really think I don't even say within our lifetime. I think within the decade, maybe 2 decades.
But I think it's actually going to be worse, you see, because illiterate people can't read or write, but you can still talk to them. They speak English. We're going to get to the point, or they speak whatever language from whatever country they're from. They can speak and hear. I think it's going to get to a point, and maybe when we're 70 or 80, where you just can't even talk to them. They cannot communicate.
Well, I'm starting to see that now. I mean, sadly, I don't talk to my family nearly as much as I would like to because I just don't think to pick up a phone. I'm just online all the time.
Yeah,
and
I mean, Pete, my grandma keeps complaining, why don't you call me? And then she IMs me, but I hate to instant message her because she sucks at instant messaging. It's painful.
Or, look at businesses. Here's a big example. In my life, as far as I can see, if a place of business doesn't have a web presence, if I can't find them on the internet, and I don't happen to pass by them on my way to somewhere else that I did find on the internet, it doesn't exist. There could be the best restaurant in the world in my town, and I would never know it was there if it wasn't on the internet, or if I did. I mean, it's right now, geeks like us, there's the curve of innovators, early adopters, and all that, and the long tail of people pick it up later. The earliest adopters and the innovators right now, the Uber geeks and the people well beyond us, because there are people well beyond us in terms of adopting new technology.
Super beyond us, mostly people with money.
They look at us the way we look at people who don't own computers.
Yep.
But people like us are starting to semi-voluntarily cut ourselves off from a lot of the world just by nature of the way we communicate and the way we interact and the way we live. And the way it works is society eventually always follows the early adopters. It just takes time. Eventually, most of society is going to be where we are, and we'll be off somewhere stupid doing our own whatever technology crap.
But I think that the society always catches up with the early adopters at the same rate, the rate at which people learn things. But the early adopters are going to go faster and faster and faster and accelerate faster and faster.
So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have a longer and a longer tail for a long time, for at least the next decade, where there's going to be this long, long gradient, and society is going to keep getting more connected until a point where I think what Scott brought up is going to happen, and I don't know where the line will be, but there's eventually going to be a line where people are just outside of society.
Yeah. Be sort of like, if I don't know, people walking around like hooked into cyberspace, and then people walking around in the meat world, and it's two completely different worlds.
What was it called? Emily just told me about an anime that just came out that we got to check out, where the idea is that the internet is everywhere now. That there
Ghost in the Shell.
not like that, but there's transponders everywhere, right? And if you put on glasses, you can just interact with this and see it. So you can have a virtual pet that follows you around, or stuff like that.
They live.
So people who are in with this and wear the glasses live in the same physical world as people who do not, but actually live in an entirely different, effective world. They're in a world that is completely alien to people who don't use this technology.
Yep. And of course, this all assumes that nothing crazy happens.
Yes, as long as there's no global thermonuclear war.
Or similar event.
Now, my fear is that a lot of people might fall out of the loop just because the leaders of their countries are holding them back. I mean, it's not any given North Korean's fault that they're out of the loop technologically.
No, it's not.
But there's no way they can get in the loop.
But what might happen is their whole country will fall out of the world loop. And that's the end of the whole country right there.
Or like large parts of Africa or even South America. That's why it seems like education and the spreading of technology and information and connectivity is the best thing we can do for nations that are having trouble outside of, first, obviously, food and security.
Yeah, and that's why they're doing that stuff for like the OLPCs and all that stuff.
Yep, or even Ubuntu.
Yeah, but they're not doing it so well.
Well, it's hard to do. I mean, how do you convince someone who is trying to get food to eat to live one more day that they should be on the internet?
Because if they learn how to use the computer, they can, right now they'll go 5 days hungry, and then every other day for the rest of their lives, they'll get twice as much food as they've had before.
The problem is, I still think the immediate Maslow opportunity cost is too great for a lot of people.
It is.
And I can't blame anyone but the leaders of their countries at this point.
Yep.
But that to talk any more about
but
this,
then
you
could say that people in a country, the population, you can't blame the leaders, maybe even if the leader's like some monarch, because the people could rise up and do something.
And then if you go full circle, the people can't rise up unless they're connected. Otherwise, there's no way to organize. But they can't get connected.
People have done it. There was rising up going on hundreds of years ago.
The rising ups were always due to people having some measure of secure connection to where they could organize it.
Yeah.
And that's actually being harder to do because a long time ago, when there were revolutions in the US or in France or wherever, there wasn't so much surveillance, and it wasn't that hard to secretly put something together. But now, people who are in power have so much more power relative to people who aren't in power that it's so much more difficult to rise up against them, except geeks and people in the modern world, because we have encryption that the governments can't keep up with.
Yep. Yeah, I guess if the actual leader of the country I was kind of assuming the whole country was technologically deficient, but if you're a king with mad computers and all your people are peasants, they're pretty much permanently oppressed. I mean, unless they physically run away and you didn't catch them.
From what I read, I am sure that the elite and the aristocracy and the government of North Korea are connected to the internet.
Yeah, probably.
And know about the world. But because they have that power, there's no way anyone in their country could do anything.
Nope. All right, I think we're done.
Things of the day. So we were talking over the weekend. I'll get to it. Scott's just itching to bring this one up because this is a good thing of the day.
Whee!
We were joking about the tally of people we know who give us things of the day. And the front runners are like, Ido gives us a lot, and actually Emily gives us a lot, and a few of the listeners send us some, and we've got a general idea of who gives us good things of the day.
Most of them come from Dig. Dig gives us most things of the day.
But in terms of not actual humans who give us stuff.
Yeah. Most of the time, though, it's us finding it on the internet, but we do get them from people.
And luckily, the ones we get from people are usually the good ones because they're not on Dig.
And also because if someone gives them to us like that, and it's either we've already seen that, or those aren't people who spend all day on the internet. So when they find something, it's because that something kind of came around to them in their specific ways.
Which matters a lot because while we're connected to the Slashdot, Dig, the technorati of the world and all that, we're not. There are two communities on the internet that we are not connected to.
Every other community we're not connected to.
I'm connected to a lot.
Yeah, but we're not connected to every community on the internet but two.
Well, no, but the ones that matter to us, the ones that would give us things of the day,
Yeah.
and also the ones that are big.
Ah, okay.
And of the big ones, we're not connected to the live journal community, which is like this insular, closed community of people.
It's not really insular and closed.
Yes, God, go in there. The inside jokes that like every now and then a joke pops out of live journal, and it's usually really funny, or it's some kind of lolcat thing or whatever. But they circulate in LiveJournal for a long time before they ever make it to Dig.
Mm-hmm.
And we miss out on a lot of those until long after the fact. So Corbin showed us this, and I just going to get right to it. Should I just play the whole thing?
I don't know if we need to play the whole thing.
All right, I'll sum it up. A guy made a little song for his daughter who was frustrated with people she has to deal with at work. And the song goes a little something like this.
I'm about to whip somebody's ass. Oh, I'm about to whip somebody's ass. Oh, if you don't leave me alone, you're gonna have to send me home, 'cause I'm about to whip somebody's ass.
Oh, I'm about to whip somebody's ass.
I really like it. It fits. I feel good about that song.
I feel real good about that song. It's an
that-
awesome song. The guy's a musical talent, and he recorded it pretty high quality.
Now that made me laugh. A little bit of lolcat in me.
Yeah.
Then one thing led to another, and an unrelated human being elsewhere in the world took that and made a techno remix that is actually pretty badass. I'm not going to play an example here. Just listen to it. It's really worth listening to. I also know that's the kind of dance music I like. I like to dance to that stuff.
Yeah, it's good music. All right. So I want to get this straight here, because this is how Corbin tells me the story. You ready? Guy makes song for daughter, right? Probably heard that she was frustrated at work over the telephone. Records song with microphone into computer. Puts song on internet. People on internet find song. Some guy who makes a video podcast found the song and played it on his show. People who watch that video podcast, right, all over the world, made remixes of the song and sent them back to the video podcast guy. The video podcast guy then asked if they could find out where the original singing guy was. They found him.
In 2 days.
In 2 days, the video podcast guy went to the guy who sang the song with a CD full of the remixes, interviewed him on the video podcast. They put the remixes up on the website. Some guy named Corbin saw it, showed it to some people named Rim and Scott. People named Rim and Scott got it, made an audio podcast, right? Put that on the internet, and whoever you are is now listening to that.
And when you tell someone about this, how many layers is that? The meta levels of this are astounding. This is the world we live in.
It's basically almost godlike omniscience.
I say this a lot. This has been I have a few kicks lately, but lately I really think about the fact that compared to the vast majority of human beings that have ever existed, as far as we know, in the history of the planet Earth, we, right now, myself and Scott and all of you listening, are gods compared to them.
Think about what we just did. Think about it. For real. Look at the bigness of it. Like, you look at the stars in space and you think about how ludicrously large it is with these stars billions of light years apart and the light that took 1 billion years to shine down on you. This is half a step under that.
Grok
It's
the fullness
almost
here.
there.
Grok the fullness.
Holy shit.
I mean, what kind of world do we live in? There's a good chance that at some point along that chain, that audio went into space and came back from a satellite.
Think about it.
Yeah. So that is my thing of the day, that we are at this moment, compared to the vast host of humanity that has ever existed, likened unto gods.
And you know what we use that godlike power for?
Singing about whipping people's asses.
I'm about to do thing of the day. Okay.
That wasn't so great.
Damn it. So, we talked about encryptions before 1 or 2 times. And
I think we did a whole show on it semi-recently.
Did we? I don't really remember. I don't remember if I've even talked about this thing on the show before, but I searched, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't a thing of the day.
We did do a show on how encryption works on a basic level.
Right. There is a Firefox extension that I've been using for a while called Fire GPG. And GPG is basically GNU Privacy Guard. I don't know exactly.
Think of it as the open source equivalent of PGP.
Which is pretty good privacy. And that GPG is basically a program that lets you manage keys and encrypt things very strongly.
Yep, and by encrypting, remember, that also includes
Decrypting
signing.
and signing.
So verify, even if you don't encrypt, you can still verify, I am the person who sent this within such an astronomical mathematical certainty that you can be guaranteed it's me, or someone held a gun to my head and forced me to sign it for him.
Right. Fire GPG is a Firefox extension that incorporates into GPG that allows you to encrypt, decrypt, sign, and verify text in any text box in your browser, and also it integrates with Gmail. So what I can do is very easily in my Gmail, I can write a Gmail, I can click encrypt and send, and it will encrypt my Gmail and send it. And then if the person on the other end has Fire GPG and I encrypted it with their private key and they get it, their public key and their Fire GPG will automatically decrypt it. And if Google tries to read that email, they'll be like, oh, it's a garbled mess. Oh, well.
Now, anytime someone takes encryption and makes it trivial to use, that makes me happy because I used to be a proponent of open internet, mostly because I was in school, and every time I had to deal with debugging a problem with an encrypted protocol, it sucked. But in the real world, I want everyone to encrypt everything when at all possible.
Yep.
At least when it's in transit. Not so much on your own computer, because I could go on and on about I'd like there to be archives of email for the future for generations to study and read, and I could do a whole show on that. But suffice to say, I think it's a good idea for everyone to encrypt, because encryption will always stay ahead of, I guess, decryption that is not authorized.
Barring a technological discovery.
Yes, but if everyone encrypts, even if the encryption is broken or breakable, it makes it that much harder for anyone with malicious intent or any government to put forth the effort to decrypt everything and snoop on all your data.
Yep.
They're really, regardless of whether or not you believe there's a right to privacy in the United States, the fact remains that regardless of whether that right exists anywhere, it is your duty to protect your privacy whenever you can by whatever legal means you have available.
And encryption is one of those means that is legally available to you. And it, up until very recently, managing keys and encrypting and decrypting and signing, and these things weren't easy to do. Like, sometimes they're easier than others, and there are tools you could buy to make it easy.
Yeah,
but
the easiest it was in high school, the best I got it was where I could tell it to I could encrypt whatever was in my clipboard. So I'd type something, put it in the clipboard, run the program, paste it back out, send it.
Yeah.
Whoever I sent it to had to copy it into the clipboard, decrypt it, paste it back out.
Generally, it's a pain in the ass unless someone else sets it up for you. Now with Fire GPG, it's pretty freaking easy. Like, damn easy. So if you're thinking about, I don't encrypt or sign all my emails, but sometimes I do.
Yeah.
And
actually, I used to always, and the only reason I haven't is that my computer was kind of crappy, and I didn't like compiling anything on it. And now that I have a new computer, I'm going to go full on with my semi-permanent GPG signatures of varying lengths.
Sounds good. So Fire GPG, worth installing and setting up.
So, we were inspired to do this show after a conversation Scott had with our friend Drag and Drop over at Anime World Order a little while ago.
Yes, you see, someone was complaining. Well, actually, they were saying, don't use VLC, it sucks. And I went and I told them, well, yeah, I don't like VLC either. I'm not a fan, but there's no reason it shouldn't work unless you fuck up.
Yeah, VLC, while it does use a lot of resources, it'll play just about any video with almost no effort.
Yep. It'll just might be slow and the interface is kind of cruddy, but
it's not that bad. I don't mind VLC at all.
I'm not a fan. So I realized that there's a lot of different media playing softwares out there, and you go and I use people's computers, or I see people using their computers, and everyone's using something different. Some people using iTunes, some people using QuickTime, some people using Winamp, some people using Windows Media Player, There's people using MPlayer.
Man, there
there's
was a
people
time
using VLC.
when Winamp was the
People
be-all,
using-
end-all.
Yeah, there's people using Foobar, whatnot, right? And everyone uses something different. And a lot of 90% of media playing programs suck. And people got to learn not to use these crappy ones that they insist on using for whatever reason.
Well, first, the brief 30-second history of media playing.
All right.
There was nothing. For the longest time, there was nothing. You just couldn't play media. If you could, it was some proprietary, like a program that made media appear.
Yep.
Then we had multimedia PCs. Media started appearing everywhere.
Your computer usually would come with a program or two, and those programs would be able to play maybe an AVI, which is, there was a QuickTime and Windows Media AVIs were sort of these competing formats.
Yeah, basically nothing was compatible. It was almost
and
impossible.
And you could maybe play a WAV file that was really short or an AF file, and that was about it.
Yeah, not that it mattered because you couldn't get these files anywhere.
And
a MIDI.
MIDI. Yes.
I'm doing a show on MIDI.
Yeah. And then Winamp.
Yep. Basically, MP3s came about, and MP3s. I wonder how I can play these. And then Nullsoft and Winamp.
There was also Real, but Real sucked.
Oh, God. I guess I skipped over that subconsciously.
On purpose.
Yeah.
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 Basically, Real Player, the original Real Player, the idea of it was, hey, let's stream video over 14.4 modems. So it would compress the hell out of video and audio, so the quality was stupidly low. I mean, worse than any podcast you've listened to. So bad. And you could watch like a tiny, tiny video of CNN headline news that was all jerky and low resolution.
I remember watching 30 seconds of Les Miserables in like a 60 by 60 window.
Yes.
And that was awesome.
Well, it was on a 640 by 480 monitor, so it wasn't so bad. It looked bigger.
Yeah, but it was still only 60 pixels. How much information is there in 60 pixels of video?
Yep, and that's how it was.
So, well, Real just kind of, that company was evil back then. Like, they're not as bad now, but
They're not as bad now.
They were actually evil and were trying to take over media on computers, but we're not going to get into that either.
No, we're not.
Winamp pretty much became the gold standard for a long time in media playing.
Yep, I mean, it could play pretty much any audio file.
And then it started playing video really well.
Yeah. I mean, even when Winamp was playing video, there were other players to use as well, but Winamp was just as good as the others, because in those days, like the early days of DivX and MPEG-4, pretty much, you had trouble with any player you chose. And, Winamp was just as good as the others.
Yeah, there were competing codecs, competing formats.
There still are, but...
But back then, there was no easy way to install them.
No, it wasn't obvious, at least.
Yeah.
Like, I actually installed, I think, for a long time, I used the DivX player from Divx.com.
Yeah.
Which is terrible.
It is pretty terrible, I gotta say.
It's horrendous. No one should use it.
So now, recently, it's not as big a deal anymore, and it's pretty easy to get media playing to work as long as you know what programs to use and how to set them up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they use just Windows Media Player, which I get, it's actually not bad.
Yeah, I will admit, if you're using Vista or Modern XP, Windows Media Player is not that bad for playing video.
Yeah. They use, QuickTime iTunes on a Mac. And then they install, codecs, like, directly into their operating system that, all the different players can take advantage of. They get, like, the CCCP thing to get all the codecs on Windows or whatever. And VLC can also just play every freaking video, and that works on Windows, Mac, or Linux. So a lot of people use VLC, which I don't like it, because I think it's a bad interface, and it generally an inefficient program, but it does work and can play just about any video you've got.
I don't really worry about efficiency unless I'm near the end of the life cycle of a computer.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, my old computer, MPlayer couldn't even play most things properly just because it was so old and slow.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, I want to talk a bit about MPlayer. MPlayer is the video player. The media player, actually, as far as I'm concerned and as far as many people are concerned. MPlayer is primarily a Linux app, but it does go on... We use it on the Mac, and you can use it on Windows also. MPlayer can fucking play anything. God damn, it can play anything.
Not only that, but it's pretty simple to make it work. It's not as complicated as you might expect, but there's a lot of functionality just under the surface if you decide you actually want it. But it's not in your way if you don't want it.
Yep. It's like with MPlayer, you have the ability to like adjust the timing of subtitles if you want to, but you don't have to. And you won't even know you can do that. If you want to just watch videos and listen to music, MPlayer does that very easily, and it does it with such clockwork and perfect efficiency that just always works. It's amazing.
So, Scott, say you've got a Windows PC. How would you go about installing MPlayer and getting it to play commonly found things on the Pirates Bay or Anime Ski?
Well, first I would go to the MPlayer website.
Isn't it mplayer.org?
It's MPlayerHQ.hu.
Oh. Oh.
Yes.
I've never actually been there. I just go in the repositories. And...
Yes. And then I would go to the download page, and the download page here says, description, MPlayer 1.0 RC1 Windows GUI. So I download that, and I do the usual business, just like it's a program. I'd install it.
Now, notice GUI. It's not like it's some weird Linux, you gotta type commands to make it
Well,
go.
you can also download MPlayer 1 RC Windows, which does not have the GUI.
Yeah, I'd recommend getting the GUI because
if you're a Windows user.
Yeah, or if you're anyone, it's nice to have.
Yeah, the thing is, I actually like it better without the GUI because it's really simple. All I do is I find the file I want to play, and I say MPlayer space the file, and I push enter, and it plays. That's all I gotta do. It can even play DVDs. I watch DVDs on the train with MPlayer on my laptop. MPlayer space DVD : / chapter number, so chapter 4, and it plays chapter 4 of the DVD. Bam, there it is.
So then, how do I go about getting the codecs? I heard that nothing works unless I get all the fancy new DivX codecs.
Well, on the same page where you can download MPlayer, if you scroll down a bit, it says binary codec packages.
Huh.
And there's a little thing there. You can download the binary codec packages and install them. And that will allow you to play 99.9% of videos and audios ever.
So, how do people have problems with this?
Because people don't use MPlayer and they use some other crazy video program, or they have problems with their computer in general outside of their media player. And since a media player is sort of a finicky app in general, screwing up your computer with spyware or DRM or other things like that.
See, now that is what I was waiting for you to say. Because most of the time, when someone comes to us with a Windows media playing problem, it is probably actually a Windows spyware or Windows DLL or Windows broken problem.
Yep.
Macs are different, but I don't know enough about doing all that on the Mac to really talk about it.
The most problem with Macs is that so many Mac programs just use QuickTime. So you kind of have to put stuff into QuickTime to make it do what you want, which is not obvious. Like, you get to go put some stuff in some library files somewhere and all that kind of jazz.
But you can always just run MPlayer on the Mac.
The way we watch anime on the Mac is I have MPlayer and the little dock thing, and I just find a video file, and I drag it onto the MPlayer icon and let go, and it plays every time.
Well, every now and then, the one or two times it didn't work, usually the file was actually broken or corrupt.
Yeah, it wouldn't play on anything on any computer. The thing about MPlayer that you gotta understand is actually one of the things I like the most about it is that if you're not using the GUI version, it's all keyboard shortcuts. But the keyboard shortcuts are obvious. Like, if you want to skip forward 30 seconds in the video, you push the right arrow. If you want to go back, you push the left arrow. If you want to go a minute ahead or back, you push the up and down arrows. You can do other stuff too, like go forward and back, like with page up and page down, 10 minutes. And unlike other, video programs, so you'll drag the little thing left and right, and it sort of lags, and it skips around a bit.
It's instant. It's just bam, bam, bam.
MPlayer is instant. It's like bam, bam, bam. Yep. It just immediately jumps ahead, and it's perfect with no skips.
And
bumps.
that's not just fast computer. It's bam, bam, bam. For the most part, even on my old computer.
Yeah, if you've got an old computer and you're watching videos and it skips around a lot, to try using MPlayer on Linux. I can get a Pentium 3 450 megahertz, people, to play brand new high quality videos with MPlayer. It'll work without a lot of skipping at all. It'd be very watchable. Because I used to watch anime on a computer exactly like that back in the day, when videos were actually even worse than they are now. So I should have no problem now.
And sadly, well, I guess not sadly, that's really all we have to say about that. It's pretty straightforward. Use MPlayer.
Use MPlayer. And yeah, video players are sort of a troubled thing. There's so many different ones, and there's a lot of spyware ones out there. And
yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be.
It's everyone has these different preferences, for what software they use to play their media. And I think there's really not too many of them that are actually good. And I don't know why people are all using different things.
I think part of it is people don't know, and part of it is that there are a lot of websites out there that trick you or try to make you think that you need their player to play certain things, or that some things are incompatible. There's a lot of FUD about media players.
Oh, there is indeed a lot of FUD.
Yep.
Yeah, people are like, oh, yeah, if you're having trouble... Because what'll generally happen is someone will find a file they can't play, and they'll go somewhere, and they'll say, hey, I can't play this file. What should I do? And someone always says, oh, use this player. Oh, use this player. I don't have any problems with this one.
Yep.
And they keep switching players.
But here's the thing. All right, I have a problem.
Keep installing different codec packs.
I'm Wendy, and I have my Windows PC, and it's full of spyware, and I can't play some video I downloaded. So I go and ask, hey guys, I can't play this video, I'm using Windows Media Player. And they say, oh, well, it works fine if I play it in blah, blah, blah. So I download blah, 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 and it still doesn't play. Now, the reason it doesn't play, because my computer's messed up. It has nothing to do with what video player I'm using.
Yeah, I notice a lot of people have like a whole bunch of different video players and audio players installed on the same computer. And it's
We
like,
do, but that's just because we never bothered to delete all the ones we experimented with.
no, I really only have...
Well, on the Mac.
Yeah.
We have the QuickTime, we have the VLC, we have the M player.
Yep. But
have
you
Juiced.
can't get rid of the QuickTime. Juiced isn't a media
I know.
player.
I just laugh about Juiced because I'm thinking about uninstalling it.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing, though, is nowadays, people actually... Back in the day, you didn't have a lot of media. You only had, like, a folder full of it. So using directories and your file system as a way to organize your media was not a big deal because it actually worked. You only had, like, 1,000 songs, maybe. You just organize them into folders, and you're good to go. Nowadays, it's really necessary to have something that sort of manages your music or video library because you have so much stuff with such these giant hard drives. And there's not too many applications that do that very well at all.
Yeah, I mean, iTunes does it better than most, I'd say, but I still, it's not...
It does it, iTunes does it in a way that actually works, which is better than most
Well,
programs.
see, that's the thing. iTunes doesn't do it in a way I like, but iTunes works and doesn't just crash halfway through.
Yes, on Linux, pretty much, like, Banshee can do it, but Banshee, if you add more than, like, 100 things to the library... It becomes unstable and crashes and slows to all the shit, no matter what computer you're using.
I mean, sadly, it's to the point where while I recognize that I need to organize my music in a better way because the way I do it now is fine, but it's starting to be outstripped just by the sheer amount of media I have. But I continue to put my new music into this same directory structure, which is fairly robust, but it's gonna run. It's not gonna extend forever. Because there's no better way for me to do it. I have too many songs.
Yep. In Linux, the only thing that actually I think does a good job of it is Amarok, mostly because it just doesn't crash, and it actually has good management and uses real relational databases to take care of that stuff. But it's like a KDE app, and it's not perfect, but it's
the other
best.
problem,
It's the best you can get.
A lot of people have a large legacy collection of music that they've gotten from way back in the day. There's no ID3s in that. File names are wrong. Things are spelled wrong. All sorts of... It's very hard to take an old set of MP3s and, without a lot of effort or crying, put them into a new way of organizing them.
Yep. I mean, there are things that'll help you out with that, like Music Brains. But Music Brains isn't perfect, and it's a tool that makes it easier to, like, corral all your MP3s and such, but it still requires a lot of manual labor and data entry and dragging and dropping and typing. It just requires a lot less than doing every single song one at a time by hand.
So I think as a result, a lot of people end up continuing to use their old structures just because they, like my MP3 collection. If I import that into iTunes, I can't find anything easily because I know where all the files are. They're organized in a way that makes sense to me. In this gigantic nested collection of folders based on different whatevers. But in iTunes, because there's no ID3 data or anything, the songs are just in this mishmash. And without the file name structure and the directory structure, I can't find the files. So as a result, I don't use iTunes to organize my old music. But I'd like to use it to organize my new music. But then now I'm going to have two different collections of music. And I think the only answer is to keep your legacy music separate and start fresh with your new music. And wait, and eventually you'll probably replace all your old music with better modern MP3s of the new stuff with all the data in the right places. And once you reach that point, just delete your old MP3 collection.
But yeah, there aren't too many programs besides iTunes, and maybe I never tried to do it with Windows Media Player. and Winamp does it now, and
Winamp did it
Amarok-
okay, actually.
Yeah, Winamp does it in an okay way. And there's really not too many programs that are good at managing a media library, which is becoming a huge need of many people that is not satisfied nearly as well as it should be.
Plus, media library alone, one thing. Cross-platform media library or media library on SAN or NAS, but then I want to access it from iTunes for my iPod, and I also want to access it from my media player downstairs and my Zune. At that point, you got to use the directory structure to just so everything will work, and then you're right back where you started.
Yep. It pretty much sucks. Like, because you've got an iPod, you've got a computer, a desktop, you've got a laptop, and you've got the music stored, and you don't want to copy every single song and every single video to every single one of those
Yeah, hard
machines.
drives aren't that cheap.
Yeah, so you want to have them all probably on the desktop or on maybe a server somewhere, but you want to be able to search and play anything from the library from your laptop, no matter where you are. You want to be able to sync anything to your iPod, no matter which computer you plug the iPod into. You want to be able to, listen to any song and watch any video from any computer. And there's really not too many solutions for that. I mean, there's a thing on Linux, the MPD, the Music Player Daemon, but that's it has the right design to do something like that, but it's not perfect. It doesn't solve all the needs. There really isn't anything that solves all these needs.
Nah, I mean, for now, I'm just going to keep my directory structure, which is half based on artist and then album, but also half based on genre.
Yep.
Which is kind of annoying, but luckily I'm weird, so I'm used to it.
Yep. But once you find whatever file you want to play, and player plays it.
Yep.
Yep. And that's all. I think that's all we got to say. Media
Yeah.
players are crazy, and don't use a stupid one.
Yeah, and in terms of just playing audio on Linux, I use XMMS.
XMMS is old and busted.
I know, it's old and
but
busted.
it still kind of works.
It works okay,
Yeah.
and it feels like Winamp, which I'm used to.
I use Amarok because my media library is in it, so I don't have to, export or anything like
The
that.
only reason I'm not currently using Amarok is because I didn't have a computer that I could easily install it on
Yep,
until now.
Yep.
I think XMMS is going to go the way of all the other things I was uninstalling.
The thing is, those guys are working on. There used to be Beat Media Player, but now they're actually working on BMPX, and it looks like it's going to become the shit awesome, but it's not there yet. So you gotta wait until BMPX is ready, and then we can go to BMPX, because I think in the end that will be the best choice, but not right now.
And on that note, I want to finish here, mostly because I want to get the show done on the new computer, see how long it takes to edit, which I think is going to be a really pleasant experience.
Go to bed a lot earlier there.
Not at all, no.
No?
Because I think I'm going to reboot and play Steam. I installed DEF CON. Steam is bad because I can just click on games that I don't own, and the games appear. And the only thing that changes is a number goes up on my credit card.
You can even get game demos without making the number go up.
I know, but I can get games. And also, I can play Counter-Strike. And I guess I forgot that Counter-Strike is still a pretty damn good game, all things
Except
considered.
now it's full of ads.
Yeah, but luckily, I can, as long as I don't play on the most popular maps in the game, I won't see the ads. And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.